Hi guys, today we're taking a look at the ClubSport Shifter from Fanatec. Details are in the description below, including purchasing links. So we'll be testing this out on the Fanatec CSL DD wheelbase, on my PC and Xbox, and we'll also try it out with the Logitech wheels I have, and hopefully it will give you an idea if the shifter's worth getting for your sim racing setup. So let's begin by opening it up and seeing what you get in the packaging. But before we start, if you're new to the channel, hope you can support me by subscribing and hitting the bell icon to be informed of my next release. In the packaging, you get a quick start guide and some stickers. You get 3 cables. 2 of them have with what looks like an RJ12 connector, and the other one has an RJ12 to, I think it's called DIN connector. You get some fixtures, so these are mount related, and a set of screws to attach these onto the shifter. You get a replacement gear knob, Fanatec at the bottom there, and on the other side, all metal finish on this one. Coming onto the shifter, you can see the gears top and bottom on here, and obviously neutral there. If I place it into position, you hear a clunk as it's going in, a real quality feel to this, and a metal finish all the way round. Gear knob can be easily replaced just by spinning it off. And the one you get with this is obviously metal top and bottom and a rubber finish around the middle. Showing you around the sides, you can see a selector at the bottom, says 8 over here and sequential there. Continuing along, you've got a connector point there and another selector on the other side, sequential and 8. And that's all you've got on there. And coming underneath, you can see the mounting points on here. Let's make a start at installing the shifter. So I'm going to install it on my Track Racer Sim cockpit. I've got an accessory on the cockpit that allows me to mount the shifter. So I've got that attached on the left-hand side, but that can be placed on the right. There are multiple ways of installing this, and I thought I'd highlight that you've got the screws over here, and once you take them off, that enables you to put in a T-nut in there, and that's how you can side mount it if you wanted to. There's some sim frames that you can attach a bracket onto either side and then mount it, but I'll be using the more conventional method of just screwing it directly onto the plate over here. The screws required for these are M6, and this is a 16mm screw. It came with a sim cockpit, and just to show, it takes an Allen key to tighten it up. And taking the shifter, we just line up the screw holes, lines up to these 2 and lines up to these 2 as well. Place it into position and then just tighten it up. If you're wondering why 2 different gear knobs were given, this is suitable for H shifter mode, and the one currently on is for sequential mode. You don't have to change them, but it's preferable to do so, depending on the mode you're in. Next, taking the RJ12 cable to RJ12 cable, we'll plug one end into the shifter, and we'll plug the other end into the ClubSport USB adapter, and then plugging in the USB adapter into my gaming PC. Coming over to my PC and taking a look in the Fanatec Control Panel, no device is found, it's saying, and then going over to Control Panel and looking in devices and printers, this is where the USB adapter shows up. So you can see it here, Fanatec ClubSport USB adapter. Now if I turn on the CSL DD wheelbase, it's obviously picked up the wheelbase, and you can see detected devices, shifters in there. Now clicking on there, you can see the shifter values on here. It's in the sequential mode and not in the H shifter mode. And there's an option for shifter settings, map sequential shifter to shifter paddles. Looking in firmware update and going into firmware manager, that's what you see in there. So the shifter isn't shown. And now if we change the mode to sequential, nothing changes on the app on here. So it's interesting seeing how it is with the ClubSport USB adapter. Next, removing the RJ12 cable from the USB adapter. The cables you get with this, there's 2 RJ12 cables, and they're not that long. So I've got one of these inline Ethernet connectors, and that allows me to connect 2 RJ12 cables together. So one end goes in there and the other end goes here. And that allows me to extend the cable so it can reach the wheelbase. And the other end of the cable can be plugged into shifter 1 connection point on the back of the wheelbase. Now coming over to my PC, the wheelbase isn't on, just to show nothing's detected in there. And looking in Control Panel, you don't see the device in there either. Let's turn on the wheelbase, see the wheelbase appear now, and then looking in shifter, that's how the shifters appeared in sequential mode. And if we now flip over to H shifter mode, there you go. You can see the 8 gears on here, and for the reverse and the 7th gear, you need to push down to engage it. This is to avoid the situation where you accidentally put it into that gear. There's a calibration option, and clicking that, you just run through the different gears. So initially you start off in neutral, click neutral set, and you just run through the gears with this. So reverse gear set, and I'll do the others. and that's it. That's calibrated now. And looking in the firmware update, firmware manager, you don't see it in here. And then flipping over to control panel, all you see is this item here, it's a Fanatec wheel. So it's good to see the differences in using the ClubSport USB adapter or connecting it directly to the wheelbase. Now I've started up Forza Horizon 5 on my PC, and to use the shifter, the first thing you need to do is enable it in the game. Going into settings, difficulty and shifting, you can see it sets to automatic, meaning it will just automatically change gears for you. Moving along to the next option, that's manual, and this will allow the shifter to be used. And with this, you don't need a clutch. And then moving along from here, you've got manual with clutch. And this scenario, you're gonna have to ensure on your pedals, you've got a clutch. So I've got the CSL DD pedals here, and I've added in the clutch kit on here. So we'll leave it on this setting, and now coming back from here, we'll save it. Testing this out, so if I clutch down, go into first gear, neutral, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and then coming all the way back, push down and go into reverse. And now testing this out, so holding onto the clutch still, going into first, slowly come off the clutch and accelerate. There you go, then clutch down, go into second. Works perfectly. The shifter does have a really good feel to it. Going through the gears, very solid build quality on here. Not cheap and nasty in any way. Just adds to the realism. Now, when you're using the shifter, you're not limited to just using that. You can alternate between using that and the paddle shifts. So now if I clutch down, go up a gear to third, shift down again, go to fourth, and then on the shifter, I can go to 5, back to 4, back to 3. So you can alternate between the two, which is good. So there's no restriction on that. Next, if we go into settings, go to difficulty, and then flip over to just manual. And this is where you don't have to use the clutch. So now coming out of this and saving these settings. So now I can put it into gear, accelerate, go into the next one. And again, paddle shifts work as well with this, and no need to press the clutch with this. Really depends on what you're after in terms of realism with this, but it's nice to have that functionality. And obviously the functionality is dependent on the game you're playing a lot of the time, but in this instance, I'm just demonstrating with Forza Horizon 5. And now if we flip over the shifter into sequential mode and try shifting, nothing happens. And the way to get this working is by going to the Fanatec Control Panel and turn on the option to map sequential shifter to shifter pedals. And now if I come over to the game, and now if I speed up, pull down, you can see gears shifting and going down as well. So that's how you get it going. And now with the game running, if I flip back to H shifter mode and looking in the Fanatec app, it's gone back into H shifter mode. So it is possible to flip between the modes. And if I flip it over, you just got to make sure the map sequential shifter to shifter pedals is enabled. Coming over to my Xbox and starting up Forza Horizon 5. Settings wise, I've got the shifting set to manual with clutch. So testing that out. Now going into first gear by initially clutching down, shifting into first, you can see the gear change, start accelerating, come off the clutch, change gear, works perfectly. Experience is the same, no difference. Great quality to the shifter, just adds to the realism. Now if we flip over the shifter into sequential mode, works perfectly. The shifter also works perfectly on the Fanatec CSL GT DD Pro, which is no surprise as it's based on the CSL DD. I've tested in both H shifter mode and sequential mode, and it works perfectly. And in this clip, I'm testing it out on Gran Turismo 7, and the experience with this is awesome. If you're using the shifter standalone and had the Fanatec Control Panel installed, you won't see it in there. What you'll have to do is download the ClubSport USB adapter driver, and once installed, you see a shortcut for Fanatec wheel property page. Going into that, you can see the USB adapter, and going into the properties, this will allow you to calibrate the shifter and perform firmware updates on it. You can also see when it's flipped between sequential mode and H shifter mode. Now set up the Logitech G923 wheel and pedals together with the shifter, and the shifter's connected obviously with the USB adapter. Now by default, if I shift through the gears, you can see nothing's happening. Gears don't change at all. Now to get this working, if you go to settings, controls, change input mapping, wheel, and you just have to remap all the gears. So you can see it starting here from reverse gear. You just need to go up to 7th. So it's just a matter of selecting it, picking your profile, going into the gear, and then that's saved. So let me do all the other gears next. I've ran through all the gears. They're all set up now. So if I come back from here, save the settings, and now running through the gears. There you go. Working as expected. And now testing this out. There you go. Works perfectly. Now this is currently set to manual, but it can work for manual with clutch as well. And it just proves the point how flexible it is, the fact you can use it in conjunction with a different wheel. So in this case, obviously Logitech's wheel, but the same applies for other wheels like the Thrustmaster wheel. So really impressed with that and really pleased to see it. Now the next thing to test out is the sequential side of this. So if I flip over, it's in sequential mode. Same thing again, that doesn't work. Going into settings, controls, change input mapping, wheel, and we just need to set shift up and shift down. And then coming back from that, saving it, and now there you go. You can shift through the gears and testing it. Works perfectly. So excellent to see it working in both the modes and gives that extra flexibility and more realistic experience. So in summary, I'm really impressed with the Fanatec ClubSport Shifter. Great build quality to this and works really well with the Fanatec CSL DD on both a PC and Xbox. And it's really cool that you can flip between H shifter mode and sequential mode mid-game. And it's great to see that the shifter can also work with any wheel via the USB adapter, making it flexible enough to work with both the Logitech wheels and even the Thrustmaster wheels. But this functionality is only available on a PC. Negatives wise, it's not cheap, but with this, you're getting a really good quality product. So there you have it. You made it to the end of another video, and I hope it's helped anyone thinking of purchasing this. Details are in the description below, including purchasing links. If you're new to the channel, hope you can support me by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon to get notified of my next release. Thanks for viewing, and see you in the next one.